They say freedom cannot be bought, only earned. But I learned that night that everything, dignity, choice, even souls, has a price tag when desperation sets the terms. The cruelest part isn't being sold. It's discovering that your worth was always measured in coins, just waiting for someone desperate enough to count them. I used to believe freedom meant having choices. Now I know better. Freedom is the luxury of those who've never been merchandise, never stood on a platform while strangers calculated their value in gold. True captivity isn't chains or cages, it's the moment you realize your own family sees you as currency, a debt to be paid, a problem to be solved with the right buyer. The autumn moon hung blood-red over Thornhaven as my fate was sealed, not in some grand ceremony or ancient ritual, but in the hushed whispers of my stepmother, Cordelia, and the town's merchant guild. They spoke of deficits and debts, of promises that needed keeping, and of me, Luna, the family's expendable asset, the daughter whose blindness in one eye made her half as valuable but twice as easy to sacrifice. My affliction had come 3 winters ago, a fever that stole the sight from my left eye, leaving it a milky white that made children point and adults avert their gazes. In a world where shifters prized physical perfection, where your wolf's strength determined your standing, I was damaged goods. My wolf still existed. I could feel her restless energy beneath my skin, but she was weak, sometimes taking minutes to shift when others transformed in heartbeats. "The auction is tomorrow," Cordelia announced at dinner, not even pretending to soften the blow. My younger half-sister, Pearl, gasped delicately, her perfect features arranging into practiced sympathy. My father sat silent, studying his soup as if it held the secrets of the universe. "What auction?" I asked, though my sinking heart already knew. "Don't be dramatic, Luna." Cordelia's lips pursed. "The family's debts must be paid. The Merchant Guild has agreed to a private auction. Only the wealthiest packs will bid. You should be grateful this saves Pearl from such a fate." Pearl, always Pearl, the daughter who could shift in seconds, whose wolf was silver white and magnificent, whose both eyes sparkled like sapphires. The daughter worth protecting. "Father?" My voice cracked on the word. He finally looked up, and in his weathered face, I saw not cruelty but something worse, resignation. "The Northern Territories are expanding their households. You'll be well treated. It's better than what the debt collectors would do to all of us." Better. As if being sold to strangers in distant territories was a kindness. That night, I didn't attempt escape. Where would a partially sighted wolf run that they wouldn't find her? Instead, I sat by my window, pressing my fingers against the cold glass, memorizing the view from my childhood room. The forest beyond Thornhaven stretched endless and dark, keeping its secrets. Somewhere out there, wolves ran free, choosing their paths, their mates, their destinies. By dawn, they dressed me in a simple white shift that did nothing to hide my imperfection. The clouded eye they'd all pretend not to notice, while calculating how much to subtract from their bids. Cordelia had wanted to cover it with cosmetics, but the auction master refused. "They need to see what they're buying," he'd said, as if I were livestock at market. The private auction house sat beneath the old merchant hall, a stone chamber that reeked of fear and old tears. 5 other girls waited there, each bearing their own defects that had brought them to this moment. A girl with burn scars covering her arms, another whose left leg dragged behind her. We didn't speak. What words existed for those about to be sold? Through the walls, I heard them gathering the wealthy alphas and betas, come to purchase broken wolves for whatever purposes they desired. Servants, laborers, or worse. The auction master had assured us we'd be household additions, but everyone knew that meant whatever the buyer wanted it to mean. "Lords and alphas," the auction master's voice boomed beyond the door. "Welcome to Thornhaven's debt settlement auction. 6 lots available tonight. All shifters, all of age, all properly documented. Shall we begin?" My hands trembled as footsteps echoed closer. In minutes, I would stand before them, the girl with one clouded eye, whose own father traded her for debt relief. But as the door opened and harsh light flooded in, one thought blazed through my mind. They could buy my body, but my spirit, that price hadn't been set yet. The morning of the auction arrived with a bitter frost that seemed to seep into my very bones. But the cold outside was nothing compared to the ice that had settled in my chest 3 winters ago, the day everything changed. I hadn't always been the expendable daughter. Once, before the fever, I'd been Father's little moonbeam, the girl who could track any scent through the forest, whose hearing was so sharp I could identify each pack member by their heartbeat alone. My wolf might have been smaller than others, but she was clever, quick, graceful in ways that made up for her size. Then came the burning sickness that swept through Thornhaven. Pearl had hidden in her room, terrified of contamination. Cordelia had forbidden anyone from entering my chamber, except for old Marta, the servant too worthless to matter if she caught ill. Father had paced outside my door for the first day, then his visits grew shorter, less frequent, until they stopped altogether. When I finally emerged, half my world had gone dark. The fever had taken my left eye's sight, leaving it clouded like winter frost on glass. But worse than the blindness was the change in how everyone looked at me, or rather, how they didn't. I became a ghost in my own home, a reminder of imperfection in a world that worshipped strength. Luna can't possibly represent our family at the harvest gathering, Cordelia had declared that first month. What would the other packs think? What they thought was that I was cursed, damaged, a genetic dead end no worthy alpha would ever claim. The marriage proposals that had begun arriving on my 16th birthday ceased immediately. The sons of alphas who'd once competed for my attention now looked through me as if I were furniture. But I adapted. My remaining eye grew sharper, compensating. My other senses heightened further. I could smell emotions now, fear and joy and lies all carrying distinct scents. My wolf learned to fight differently, using shadow and cunning where others used brute force. I thought, perhaps, I could still prove my worth. How naive I'd been. The debts had started small. Father's failed investments in Northern Territory trade routes. Then Cordelia's spending on Pearl's debut season, desperate to secure her a match with a powerful alpha's son. The interest compounds quickly when you borrow from the merchant guild. Soon, we owed more than our estate was worth. It's Luna, or everything, I'd heard Cordelia tell Father last week, not bothering to lower her voice. The guild will take the house, the lands, our position in the pack. Pearl's prospects would be ruined. One daughter's sacrifice to save the family, it's logical. Logical. My life reduced to an equation. Father had found me in the garden that night, the first time he'd sought me out in months. Your mother would have fought this, he said quietly, speaking of the woman who died birthing me. She had fire in her spirit, just like you. Then why aren't you fighting it? I'd asked. His shoulders had sagged. Because I'm not the man she believed I was. I'm weak, Luna, and weakness makes cowards of us all. At least he'd admitted it. That was more honesty than I'd gotten from anyone in 3 years. The night before the auction, Pearl had slipped into my room, tears streaming down her perfect face. I'm sorry, she'd whispered. I'm so sorry, Luna. If I could trade places. But you won't. I'd cut her off, tired of pretty lies. And I wouldn't want you to. One of us should have the life we dreamed of. She'd fled then, unable to bear the weight of her relief that it wasn't her. Now, standing in the holding chamber beneath the merchant hall, I touched the small vial hidden in my shift's pocket, wolfsbane extract enough to stop a heart if needed. My one choice in all of this, my final card to play if the buyer's intentions proved too horrific to endure. I wasn't brave enough to use it preemptively, but knowing it was there gave me strength. The other girls huddled together, finding comfort in shared misery, but I stood apart, as I'd learned to do. Depending on others only led to disappointment. Whatever came next, I would face it alone, with one good eye, and a stubborn wolf, who refused to acknowledge we were anybody's lesser half. The auction master's voice grew louder beyond the door. Lot number 3, gentlemen. Something special despite appearances. My turn was coming. Soon, I would learn what price the world had set for a partially sighted wolf whose own family deemed her expendable. The answer would either destroy me or forge me into something stronger. Either way, I would face it standing. The door swung open with a groan that seemed to echo my own dread. The auction master, a thin man with calculating eyes, pointed at me with his gilded staff. You're next. My legs moved mechanically, carrying me through the narrow corridor toward the raised platform. Each step echoed like a countdown. Through the archway, I glimpsed them dozens of wealthy wolves, their eyes gleaming in the lamplight. Some lounged in velvet chairs, others stood near the walls, all wearing the same expression of casual assessment. Lot number 3, the auction master announced as I stepped onto the platform. The lights were deliberately bright, ensuring every flaw was visible. Female shifter, aged 19. Partial blindness in the left eye, but verified fertile bloodline. Strong sensory compensation in remaining facilities. Opening bid at 50 gold marks. 50. Less than they'd pay for a good breeding horse. 25, someone called out, and laughter rippled through the room. My jaw clenched, but I kept my head high, focusing my good eye on a point above their heads. 30. Another voice offered lazily. The auction master frowned. Gentlemen, surely we can appreciate the value here. Her bloodline traces back to the mountain clans. Her offspring would carry that heritage despite her impairment. Offspring, as if I were breeding stock. The wolfsbane in my pocket seemed to burn against my skin. 40 marks. An elderly beta called out, his leer making my skin crawl. She'll do well enough for kitchen work. The blind side won't matter for scrubbing. 45, countered a voice from the left. My fighters need practice with disadvantaged opponents. She'll make good training. Training. They wanted to use me as a living practice dummy for their warriors. My wolf snarled inside me, and for a moment, I nearly let her surface. 50 marks, going once. 500 gold marks. The room fell silent. Every head turned toward the back, where the shadows seemed deeper, thicker. A figure stepped forward, and the crowd parted like water before a ship's prow. I'd never seen him before, but I knew immediately who he was. Alpha King Marcus Nightfall, ruler of the Northern Territories, the man whose name was whispered in fear and awe across all packs. He stood taller than any wolf I'd encountered, his presence filling the room like smoke. Black hair fell past his shoulders, and his eyes, gods. Those eyes were pure silver, like moonlight on water, cold and impossibly bright. Your Majesty, the auction master stammered, bowing so low his nose nearly touched his knees. We're honored by your presence. 500 marks, you said? Did I stutter? The Alpha King's voice was deep, carrying an edge that made several wolves step back. No, Your Majesty. 500 marks for Lot 3. Her name, Marcus Nightfall said softly, but everyone heard it. What is her name? The auction master glanced at his papers. Luna Whitemore, Your Majesty. Those silver eyes found mine across the room, and something electric passed between us. Unlike everyone else, he looked directly at my clouded eye, studying it without flinching or averting his gaze. 1,000 gold marks, he said, still watching me. Gasps echoed through the chamber. That was more than all the others combined would bring. Your Majesty, a brave soul ventured. Surely for that price, you could have any perfect wolf in the realm. Marcus moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was by the wall, the next he had the speaker pressed against a pillar, his hand around the man's throat. Are you questioning my judgment? No, Your Majesty. He released the man, who crumpled to the floor, gasping. Marcus returned his attention to the auction master. 1,000 marks. End this farce. Sold, the auction master's voice cracked. Luna Whitemore, sold to His Majesty, Alpha King Marcus Nightfall. But the Alpha King was already moving toward the platform, his long coat billowing behind him. He climbed the steps with predatory grace, and suddenly he was standing before me, close enough that I could smell him pine forests and winter storms, and something else. Something dark and dangerous. Look at me, he commanded softly. I raised my gaze to his, letting him see both eyes, the working brown one and the clouded white one. They call you damaged, he said, voice low enough that only I could hear. Broken, worthless. My throat tightened, but I held his stare. They're fools, he continued. Do you know what I see? I shook my head slightly. Someone who survived what would have destroyed others. Someone who stands on this platform with pride despite their attempts to break her. He leaned closer. Someone who carries wolfsbane in her pocket, ready to choose death over dishonor. My heart stopped. How could he know? His lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. I can smell it, along with your fury, your fear, and something else, your determination to survive. He stepped back. You won't need the poison. You're under my protection now. Wine. The carriage was unlike anything in Thornhaven, black wood polished to mirror shine, pulled by 4 massive dire wolves that stood as tall as horses. I sat across from the Alpha King, trying not to stare at how the moonlight through the window turned his silver eyes almost luminescent. You're wondering why, he said after an hour of silence. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Everyone is valuable to someone, he said cryptically. The question is whether they recognize their own worth before it's too late. With respect, Your Majesty, you paid a fortune for a partially sighted wolf. That suggests either extraordinary generosity or, I paused, gathering courage, or you need something specific from me. His lips twitched. Brave. Good. Cowering bores me. He shifted, and I caught a wince he tried to hide. Tell me, Luna Whitemore, what do you smell right now? The question surprised me. I inhaled carefully, sorting through the scents. Pine. Snow, though it's still autumn. Steel. And I frowned, concentrating. Pain. Old pain. Layered like tree rings. And something else magic, but wrong somehow. Twisted. His expression sharpened. You can smell magic? Since the fever that took my eye, yes. Emotions too. Lies have a particular stench. Interesting. He leaned back. And again that hidden wince. We'll reach Shadowmere Castle by dawn. You should rest. But sleep was impossible. Every bump in the road, every howl in the distance kept me alert. The Alpha King dozed, though I noticed his sleep was restless, his hands clenching and unclenching as if fighting something invisible. As the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, I saw it, Shadowmere Castle, carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It rose from a mountainside like it had grown from the rock itself, all sharp towers and impossible angles. Welcome to your new home, Marcus said, but there was something hollow in his voice. The castle's great doors opened before we reached them. An elegant woman with steel-gray hair waited inside, her bearing regal, despite her servant's attire. Your Majesty, she bowed. The physicians await in the healing chamber. Later, Alara. His voice carried an edge of exhaustion. Show Miss Whitemore to the Dawn Tower. Ensure she has everything she needs. The Dawn Tower? Alara's eyes widened. But sir, that's what I ordered. He turned to me, and for a moment, his cold mask slipped. I saw exhaustion, pain, and something else, desperation. Rest today. Tonight, we have matters to discuss. He strode away before I could respond, his steps slightly uneven. Alara studied me with calculating eyes. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone perfect. He usually. She caught herself. Follow me. The Dawn Tower was in the castle's east wing, its rooms luxurious beyond anything I'd imagined. Windows faced the sunrise, filling the space with golden light. A massive bed dominated one room, while another held a library that made my heart race. This can't be right, I said. These are rooms for someone important, Alara finished. Yes, the question is why he thinks you are. She moved to leave, then paused. A word of warning. The Alpha King didn't buy you out of kindness. He has a purpose for everyone in this castle. Discover what he wants from you before what? Before the new moon. 3 nights from now. She left without explaining. I explored the rooms, running my fingers over silk sheets and leather-bound books. In the bathing chamber, I found mirrors. So many mirrors. Looking at my reflection, I saw what everyone else did. A thin girl with one dead eye. Nothing special. Nothing valuable. So why had the most powerful alpha in the realm paid a fortune for me? A knock interrupted my thoughts. A young servant entered with a tray of food and a note sealed with black wax. The seal bore a wolf howling at a crescent moon. Inside, Marcus's handwriting was sharp, urgent. Tonight, after sunset, come to the celestial chamber at the top of the North Tower. Come alone. Tell no one. Your particular gifts are needed for something that cannot wait. And Luna, bring your courage. You'll need it. I read it twice, my heart pounding. Whatever the Alpha King needed from me, it wasn't kitchen work or fighting practice. As I looked out at the sun climbing higher, one thought echoed through my mind. I had until sunset to decide if I was brave enough to find out what darkness the Alpha King was hiding, and whether that darkness might consume us both. Sunset painted the castle walls blood red as I climbed the narrow spiral staircase to the north tower. Each step echoed my thundering heartbeat. The note weighed heavy in my pocket, its edges worn from my nervous fingers. The celestial chamber's door was carved with constellations that seemed to shift in the dying light. Before I could knock, it swung open. "Come in!" Marcus stood with his back to me, silhouetted against a wall of windows showing the darkening sky. The room was circular, filled with star charts, ancient texts, and strange instruments I couldn't name. "Your Majesty." "Marcus," he interrupted. "In this room, just Marcus." He turned, and I gasped. His shirt was open, revealing his chest, or what should have been his chest. Instead, black veins spiderwebbed across his skin like cracks in marble, pulsing with a sickly purple light. The mark spread from directly over his heart, reaching up his neck and down his arms. "This is why you're here," he said simply. I stepped closer, my enhanced senses overwhelming me with the wrongness of it. "It's a curse, but not like any magic I've encountered. It smells like death and life twisted together." "Perceptive." He pulled his shirt closed. "It's called the Devouring, a curse cast by a dying witch who believed I killed her son." His jaw tightened. "I didn't, but she was beyond reason. Every new moon, it spreads. The healers estimate I have perhaps 2 months left before it reaches my heart completely. The new moon is in 3 nights. Yes." He moved to a desk covered in papers. "I've tried everything. Healers, mages, prayers to gods I don't believe in. Then, 6 months ago, I found this." He handed me an ancient scroll. The language was archaic, but I could make out enough. The cursed one must find the one who sees through shadow, whose imperfection grants perfect sight, who can trace the magic to its source. "A partially sighted wolf," I whispered. "The fever that took your eye, it was magical, wasn't it?" I nodded slowly. "A curse meant for my father. I intercepted it accidentally, took the brunt of it. The healer said I should have died. But you didn't. You absorbed it, transformed it. Your blindness isn't a weakness, it's a gift. You can see magic's true nature because you've been touched by it." My mind raced. "You didn't buy me as a slave. You bought me as a cure." "I bought your freedom from those who would waste your gift," he corrected. "But I won't force you. If you choose to leave, I'll provide safe passage anywhere you wish. But if I stay, help me break this curse, and I'll give you something no one else can." "Which is?" His silver eyes met mine. "Power. Real power. The kind that ensures no one will ever sell you again." I walked to the window, processing everything. Below, the castle grounds stretched into darkness. What would I need to do? Use your gift. See through the curse to find its anchor. Every curse has one, a physical object or place that holds it to this world. Destroy the anchor, break the curse. And if I can't? Then in 2 months, the curse completes itself and kills me. He said it matter-of-factly, but I caught the scent of fear beneath his calm. "Why should I care if you die?" He laughed, a harsh sound. "You shouldn't. But consider this, I'm the only thing standing between the northern territories and chaos. Without me, the pack wars resume. How many partially sighted wolves, scarred girls, and imperfect children will be sold then? How many families like yours will sacrifice their unwanted to survive?" The truth of it hit hard. He wasn't appealing to my sympathy, but to my pragmatism. "Also," he added, his voice softer, "you're curious. I can smell it. You want to know if your gift is real, if you're more than what they told you." He was right. I did want to know. "Show me the curse again," I said. He removed his shirt completely this time, and I approached, my good eye studying the patterns, while my blind eye saw something else. Through the milky haze, I could perceive threads of magic, purple-black tendrils that moved like living things. Tentatively, I reached out, my fingers hovering over the marks. "It will hurt you," he warned. "I've survived worse." My fingertips touched the cursed skin, and agony shot up my arm. But through the pain, I saw flashes of images: a woman screaming, a silver blade, a tree with white bark, wolves howling at a blood moon. I jerked back, gasping. "What did you see?" "Fragments. memories woven into the curse itself. I cradled my burning hand. I need time and access to your libraries. Everything about the witch who cursed you. You'll have whatever you need. He pulled his shirt back on. Elara will assist you. Why do you trust me? I could be lying about what I see. Because, he stepped closer, and I caught a different scent. Hope, fragile and desperate. You're the first person who touched the curse and didn't scream. You wanted to, but you didn't. That speaks to courage I desperately need. 2 days passed in a blur of ancient texts and failed attempts. The castle's vast library became my second home, its dusty volumes holding fragments of the witch's history. Her name had been Morwenna, and her son, despite Marcus's denial, had indeed died in a conflict with the Northern Pack. But something felt wrong about the official story. You're not eating. Marcus's voice startled me from my research. He stood in the library doorway, holding a tray himself, no servants. Neither are you, from what Elara tells me. He set the tray down, sitting across from me with a casualness that seemed forced. Found anything useful? Contradictions. I pushed a text toward him. 3 different accounts of your conflict with Morwenna's son, each one different. History is written by survivors, he said carefully. Which version is true? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, none of them, and all of them. I waited, having learned that silence often drew out more truth than questions. Thomas Morwenna's son was my friend once. We trained together as boys, but power changes people, or perhaps reveals who they always were. His fingers traced the edge of an old map. He wanted war with the Eastern Pacts. I wanted peace. The night he died, he challenged me formally. I had to accept, or appear weak. You killed him in an honor duel? No. His silver eyes darkened. I defeated him, showed mercy, let him yield. He paused. An hour later, he was found dead in his chambers. Poison. My good eye widened. Someone assassinated him and let you take the blame. Morwenna wouldn't hear it. Her grief needed a target, and I was convenient. He touched his chest where the curse marks hid beneath his shirt. She died casting this, poured her life into ensuring my suffering. Who really killed Thomas? I have suspicions but no proof, and it hardly matters now. He gestured to the books. What else have you learned? I hesitated, then pulled out a slim journal I'd found hidden behind other volumes. Morwenna kept notes. The curse has rules, boundaries. It feeds on guilt, not just yours, but the guilt of others connected to you. Meaning, every person who's ever betrayed you, lied to you, or harbored guilt about you, their emotions strengthen it. You're not just carrying your own burden, but theirs too. He laughed bitterly. No wonder it's killing me. I'm an alpha king. Everyone lies to me. Not everyone. The words slipped out before I could stop them. No? I have no reason to lie. You already know my worst secret, that I considered taking Wolfsbane rather than living as property. What could I say that's more shameful than that? That's not shameful. It's brave. He leaned forward. Most would rather live in chains than die free. Were there pretty words, but you've never been property. Haven't I? He stood abruptly, moving to the window. Every Alpha King is property of his crown. I exist to serve the pack, to be strong, invulnerable. The moment I show weakness, he gestured to his chest, they'll tear me apart. So you hide alone in your castle, pushing everyone away? Safer for everyone, lonelier too. He turned, studying me with those uncanny eyes. You speak too freely. Would you prefer I simper and bow? I thought cowering bored you. Despite himself, he smiled, a real one that transformed his harsh features. You're not what I expected when I went to that auction. What did you expect? Someone broken enough to be desperate, grateful, manageable. Sorry to disappoint. Don't be. I have enough manageable people. He returned to the table, sitting closer this time. Tell me about the anchor. Any theories? I spread out my notes. The curse needs a physical foundation, something of Morwenna's, probably something connected to her son. It would be hidden but accessible. She'd want you to suffer knowing it exists but not where. The new moon is tomorrow night. I know. I met his gaze. I'll need to touch the curse again when it's active. During the spreading, it will be most vulnerable then, but also most dangerous. It could kill you. It could. I won't ask that of you. You're not asking. I'm offering. I stood, gathering my books. Besides, you paid 1,000 gold marks for me. Might as well get your money's worth. Luna. Tomorrow night. Midnight. The celestial chamber. I moved toward the door, then paused. Marcus? Who else knows about the curse? Elara. My beta Garrett. And now you. That's all? Trust is a luxury I can't afford. I nodded and left, but his words echoed through my mind. In just 2 days, he'd trusted me with his greatest secret. What did that mean? More importantly, why did the thought of failing him hurt more than the thought of dying? The castle transformed as night fell. Servants scurried through halls with their heads down, doors locked earlier than usual, and even the dire wolves in the courtyard whined uneasily. Everyone knew something happened on new moon nights, even if they didn't know what. I stood in my room, preparing for what might be my last night alive. The wolfsbane vial sat on my dresser. I wouldn't carry it tonight. If this killed me, at least it would be while trying to save someone, not running from my fate. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Elara entered, carrying a black robe embroidered with silver runes. His Majesty sent this. It's warded against dark magic. She helped me into it, her fingers gentle. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Why? You owe him nothing. I thought of Marcus's silver eyes, the way he'd looked at my clouded eye without flinching, how he'd called me valuable when everyone else saw damage. He gave me a choice. That's more than anyone else ever did. Elara squeezed my shoulder. Then may the old gods protect you, child. The walk to the North Tower felt endless. Each step echoed with finality. When I reached the celestial chamber, Marcus was already there, standing shirtless in a circle of white candles. The dark veins writhed across his skin like living shadows, more extensive than 2 nights ago. You can still leave, he said, without turning. Stop offering me exits and tell me what to do. He faced me then, and I saw fear not for himself, but for me. When midnight strikes, the curse will surge. I'll try to contain it, but it will seek new flesh to corrupt. You need to touch it at its strongest point directly over my heart, and hold on no matter what you see or feel. And if it overwhelms me, then we both die. He stepped into the circle. But I believe you're stronger than that. I moved closer, noting how the temperature dropped near him. Why do you believe that? Because you survived having your world torn away your sight, your family's love, your sense of worth, and still stood on that auction platform with defiance in your eye. The curse feeds on weakness. You have none. Everyone has weakness. Then what's yours? I looked at him, this powerful, cursed king who'd bought my freedom and asked me to save his life. I'm starting to care what happens to you. Something flickered in his expression before the castle bells began tolling. Midnight. The first chime sent Marcus to his knees. The second made him cry out as the marks began spreading, creeping up his neck like grasping fingers. By the 6th chime, purple-black veins covered half his face. Now! He gasped. I dropped beside him, pressing both hands against his chest. The pain was immediate and excruciating, like touching lightning and ice simultaneously. But through my blind eye, I saw more. The curse was a web, intricate and beautiful in its malevolence. Each strand connected to a different guilt, a different betrayal. I saw Marcus as a young wolf, choosing duty over love. I saw him standing over Thomas's body, knowing he'd be blamed. I saw years of isolation, of carrying his pack's sins along with his own. But at the web's center, something pulsed a heart that wasn't his. The anchor, I gasped. It's not an object. It's a person. Someone living carries it. Marcus groaned as the 12th chime rang. The spreading stopped, but the marks remained more extensive than before. Who? He managed. I pulled my burned hands back, cradling them against my chest. Someone who was there when Thomas died. Someone who feels guilt about that night. I met his eyes. Marcus, who else was in the castle when he was poisoned? His face went pale. Several people. Council members. Servants. He stopped. Garrett. My beta. He was Thomas's friend too. Where is he now? Leading border patrol. He's always gone during new moons. Says he can't bear to see. Marcus stood shakily. He's known about the curse all along. We need to find him. No. Marcus caught my arm. If he's the anchor, Confronting him could trigger the curse to complete itself. We need proof first. I looked at his expanded marks, now reaching his jawline. We don't have time for careful investigation. Next new moon could kill you. I know. He pulled on his shirt with trembling fingers. But if Garrett betrayed me, if he killed Thomas and let me suffer for it, I need to know why. Over the next 3 days, we worked in secret. Marcus continued his normal duties while I searched Garrett's quarters during his absence. What I found made my blood run cold. Letters, hidden in a false bottom drawer. Letters between Garrett and Thomas, planning not war but Marcus's assassination. They'd wanted to rule together, splitting the northern territories between them. But something had gone wrong. The final letter, dated the night of Thomas's death, was in Garrett's hand. The poison was meant for Marcus. Thomas drank from the wrong cup. Morwenna must never know. Let her curse him, it will accomplish what we failed to do. I brought the letters to Marcus in the celestial chamber. He read them in silence, his face becoming stone. 20 years, he finally said. 20 years he's been my most trusted friend, watching me die slowly, knowing he caused it all. Garrett returned at dawn, his patrol wolves flanking him as they entered the castle gates. From my window in the dawn tower, I watched Marcus greet his beta, with the same measured calm he always displayed, no hint of the rage I'd witnessed last night. Luna, Ilara's voice made me turn. His Majesty requests your presence in the throne room. The throne room was packed with pack members and visiting dignitaries. Marcus sat on his obsidian throne, the picture of controlled power despite the curse marks hidden beneath his high-collared jacket. Garrett stood at his right hand, silver hair gleaming, looking every inch the loyal beta. Ah, the mysterious Luna, Garrett said as I approached, his green eyes appraising. I've heard much about our king's unusual purchase. All good, I hope, I replied, catching the scent of nervousness beneath his cologne. Interesting. We have a matter to discuss, Marcus announced to the room. A question of loyalty and betrayal that must be answered. The room tensed. Accusations of betrayal in a pack were serious, often ending in death for the accused. 20 years ago, Marcus continued, a young wolf named Thomas died, poisoned in this very castle. His mother, the witch Morwenna, cursed me for his death. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Few knew about the curse's origin. I've recently discovered evidence about that night. Marcus's silver eyes never left Garrett's face. Evidence that the poison was meant for me. Garrett stepped forward, his face a mask of shock. Your Majesty, surely you don't believe. I believe in truth, old friend. Marcus stood, descending from the throne with predatory grace. Luna, tell them what your gift revealed. All eyes turned to me. I moved forward, my blind eye seeing what others couldn't, the tendrils of guilt writhing around Garrett like smoke. The curse has an anchor, I said clearly. A living person who carries the weight of the original sin. That person is in this room. This is absurd, Garrett snarled. You trust the word of a partially sighted wolf you've known for days over your beta of 20 years? I trust evidence. Marcus pulled out the letters. Your own words, Garrett. Would you like me to read them aloud? The room held its breath as Garrett's face cycled through emotions: shock, fear, and finally, cold rage. You went through my things? He laughed bitterly. Yes, I wrote those letters. Thomas and I were going to save the pack from your weakness, your obsession with peace over power. So you poisoned him? I poisoned the wine meant for you, Garrett roared, his control snapping. Thomas grabbed the wrong cup in his eagerness to toast our success. I watched my lover die from poison meant for you. The crowd gasped. Marcus remained still, but I caught the scent of his pain betrayal cutting deeper than any curse. You let Morwenna curse me knowing I was innocent. Innocent? Garrett spat. You killed him the moment you refused to expand our territory. We could have ruled everything from the northern mountains to the eastern sea. Instead, you wanted treaties and trade routes. I wanted our people to live without constant war. You wanted to be loved more than feared. Garrett's form rippled, his wolf threatening to emerge. The curse was poetry letting you die slowly, just as you've let our pack's potential die. The pack has thrived under Marcus's rule, I interjected. Peace has brought prosperity. No one asked you, broken girl. Garrett turned on me, and suddenly he was shifting, his massive brown wolf lunging. But Marcus was faster. His black wolf form intercepted Garrett mid-leap, and they crashed into the marble floor with bone-cracking force. The crowd scattered as the two wolves fought 20 years of brotherhood, ending in fangs and fury. It should have been even, but the curse had weakened Marcus. I could see the purple-black veins pulsing beneath his fur, slowing his movements. Garrett pressed his advantage, going for Marcus's throat. No, I didn't think, just acted. My wolf, small and supposedly weak, burst free. I launched myself at Garrett's exposed flank, my teeth finding purchase. He threw me off easily, but it gave Marcus the opening he needed. His jaws closed around Garrett's neck, not killing but holding, forcing submission. Garrett shifted back, blood running from the bite marks. End it then. Kill me like you should have killed Thomas. Marcus resumed human form, standing over his former beta. Death would be merciful. You'll be banished immediately. If you return to the Northern Territories, your life is forfeit. The curse, I started, will weaken with distance, Marcus said. Every mile between us lessens its hold. Garrett stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Marcus. You'll regret this, Mercy. I'll regret many things, but not this. Marcus turned his back on Garrett, the ultimate dismissal in wolf culture. Guards, escort him to the border. Now. As Garrett was dragged away, he called out, The curse won't break just because I'm gone. Morwenna made sure of that. Marcus didn't respond, but I saw his shoulders tense. After the throne room cleared, he collapsed into his chair, exhaustion evident. The confrontation had cost him more than he'd shown. 3 weeks passed since Garrett's banishment. The curse marks had faded to thin lines, no longer spreading but still present scars that wouldn't heal. Marcus threw himself into pack business, avoiding any mention of the betrayal that had shaped 2 decades of his life. I spent my days researching, desperate to find a way to break the curse completely, but every lead ended in frustration. Morwenna had been thorough. The curse was designed to persist even without its anchor. You're going to burn yourself out, Marcus said, finding me in the library at midnight again. He set down a tray of tea, a habit he'd developed bringing me food when I forgot to eat. There has to be something we're missing. Luna. He sat across from me, his silver eyes serious. It's enough. The curse is contained. I can live with the marks. But you shouldn't have to. They're a constant reminder of a crime you didn't commit. Perhaps I need that reminder. He traced one of the visible marks on his hand. Of what trusting too easily costs. That's Garrett talking, not you. He looked up sharply. You don't know me well enough to say that. Don't I? I stood, frustrated. I've seen inside your curse, Marcus. I've felt every guilt you carry, every moment of self-doubt. You blame yourself for not seeing Garrett's betrayal, for Thomas's death, for your mother's disappointment that you chose peace over conquest. Stop. You think if you'd been the king everyone expected, brutal, expansion-focused, ruthless, none of this would have happened. I said stop, but that's not who you are. You're the king who paid a fortune to free a partially sighted wolf because you couldn't stand seeing her sold like property. You're the man who brings me tea at midnight and… He moved so fast I didn't see it coming. One moment he was across the table. The next he had me pressed against the bookshelf, his hands braced on either side of my head. You see too much, he growled, his face inches from mine. Someone has to. My heart pounded, but not from fear. You've been alone in that curse for so long you've forgotten what it's like to be seen clearly. And what do you see? Someone worth saving, even if he doesn't believe it himself. His expression cracked, vulnerability bleeding through. I'm not worth your effort, Luna. I'm a king who couldn't protect his friend, couldn't see his beta's betrayal, couldn't even break a curse that's killing me slowly. You're a man who chose peace over power, mercy over vengeance, and my freedom over his pride. I reached up, touching the faded marks visible above his collar. That's worth everything. He caught my hand, his thumb brushing over the scars the curse had left on my palm. You nearly died for me. You bought my freedom. We're even. No. His voice dropped to a whisper. We're not even close to even. Before I could ask what he meant, Alara burst through the library doors. Your Majesty! Urgent news from the border. Marcus stepped back, the mask of the Alpha King sliding back into place. What is it? Garrett. He's raised an army among the exiled wolves and rogues. They're marching on Shadowmere. The blood drained from my face. How many? 300, maybe more. Alara's expression was grim. And your majesty, they have weapons. Silver weapons. Silver, the only thing that could permanently kill a shifter. How long until they arrive? 2 days, maybe less. Marcus straightened, every inch the commander. Summon the pack. Prepare our defenses. Send ravens to our allies. They won't come, Alara interrupted. Garrett sent messages claiming you're cursed, weakened, that the pack needs new leadership. And they believed him? Enough do. Our allies are waiting to see who wins before choosing sides. I watched Marcus process this, saw the moment he realized what it meant. His pack was strong, but not 300 rogues strong, not without allies. I'll challenge him, Marcus said. Single combat. It's the old way. He won't accept, I said, understanding flooding through me. He wants you destroyed, not defeated. This isn't about honor anymore. Then we fight. Marcus's silver eyes blazed with determination, and we pray our walls hold. That night, as the castle prepared for siege, I found myself standing on the battlements beside Marcus. Below, torches flickered as wolves sharpened weapons and reinforced gates. You should leave, he said quietly. Take Alara and whoever else will go. Run south before they arrive. Is that a command? It's a strong suggestion. Then I strongly decline. I turned to face him. I'm not abandoning you. Luna, please. I bought your freedom so you could live, not die in a siege that isn't your fight. You're wrong. I moved closer. You didn't buy my freedom. You bought my loyalty. And that's not something I give lightly or abandon easily. I could make you go. You could try. We stood there, the wind whipping around us, both knowing that everything would change when the sun rose. Either we'd survive together or fall together. There's something else, I said, pulling out a book I'd found. One last possibility for breaking the curse completely. Marcus took the ancient volume, reading the marked passage. His expression darkened as understanding dawned. Dawn came too soon, bringing with it the sound of war drums. From the highest tower, I could see them, Garrett's army of outcasts and rogues, a dark mass moving through the morning mist. At their head rode Garrett himself, bearing a banner I recognized with a chill, Thomas's personal sigil, the silver serpent on black. He's claiming to be Thomas's avenger, Marcus said behind me, fully armored in black steel, fighting in a dead man's name. The castle bells rang out 3 long peals followed by silence. The call to battle. Your Majesty! A young guard rushed in, bowing hastily. They've sent an envoy. In the courtyard, a lone figure waited, a scarred woman I didn't recognize, though she carried herself with authority. Marcus Nightfall, she called out, her voice carrying across the assembled pack. Garrett offers terms. Speak them, Marcus commanded from the wall. Surrender yourself to justice for Thomas's murder. Accept the curse as your rightful punishment. Your pack will be spared, allowed to choose new leadership. And if I refuse? Then every soul in this castle dies. Garrett has sworn it before the old gods. Marcus laughed, cold and sharp. Garrett swears by gods he doesn't believe in, offers justice for a murder he committed. Tell him I have a counteroffer. The woman waited. Single combat. Him and me. The winner takes all pack, castle, northern territories. The loser's forces disperse immediately. He anticipated this. He refuses. You had your chance at honor, Nightfall. You chose to harbor a curse that endangers your entire pack. Then we have nothing more to discuss. The envoy left, and within an hour, the siege began. They came in waves, testing our defenses. The outer walls held through the morning, but I could see the strain on our defenders. We were outnumbered 3-1, and while Shadowmere's wolves were better trained, Garrett's rogues fought with desperate fury. By noon, they'd breached the outer gate. Our forces fell back to the inner keep, and I knew we couldn't hold much longer. That's when I made my decision. I found Marcus in the war room, poring over defensive plans with his remaining generals. I need to speak with you. Alone. The generals filed out, leaving us in the candlelit chamber. I know how to end this, I said. We've been through this. I won't let you sacrifice. Not a sacrifice. A revelation. I pulled out Morwenna's final journal, the one I'd hidden from him. Marcus, the curse can be broken, but not the way we thought. He took the journal, reading Morwenna's final entry. His face went white. This is impossible. Is it? Think about it. Why did the curse weaken when Garrett left? Not just because he was the anchor, but because proximity to guilt strengthens it. Your guilt, his guilt, the pack's collective guilt about Thomas. But according to this, the curse feeds on lies, secret shames, hidden truths. I met his eyes. What if the way to break it is to stop hiding? To tell everyone everything about Thomas, about Garrett, about the curse itself? The pack would lose faith. In a perfect king? Yes. In a real person who suffered and survived? That's someone worth following. You don't understand. An alpha king must be invulnerable. Says who? Garrett? The same traditions that would have seen me sold like cattle? I grabbed his hands, feeling the curse marks pulse beneath his gloves. Marcus, you've been dying of other people's expectations. Maybe it's time to live your own truth. Before he could respond, another bell rang sharp and frantic. The enemy had breached the inner wall. We rushed to the battlements. In the courtyard below, our wolves were falling back as rogues poured through the gap. Garrett himself led the charge, his massive brown wolf tearing through our defenders. Sound the retreat to the keep, Marcus ordered. Then, to me, get to the Dawn Tower. Bar the door. I'm not leaving you. Luna, together or not at all. He stared at me for a heartbeat, then nodded. Then stay close. What happened next changed everything. Marcus stepped onto the highest balcony, overlooking both armies. Instead of shifting, instead of fighting, he began to speak, his voice carrying on the wind, enhanced by what I realized was the curse itself, turned into a conduit for truth. Wolves of the Northern Territories, he called out. You came here believing I murdered Thomas Whitefang. You're wrong. The fighting slowed, eyes turning upward. But I am not innocent either. Marcus removed his armor, piece by piece, then his shirt, revealing the curse marks to all. Gasps echoed across the battlefield. For 20 years, I've hidden this Morwenna's curse, my punishment for a crime I didn't commit, but allowed myself to be blamed for. Lies! Garrett's human voice roared from below. The only lies are yours, old friend. Marcus's voice never wavered. Tell them how Thomas really died. Tell them about the poison meant for me. The battlefield had gone completely silent. Both armies frozen, waiting for what would come next. You forced me, Garrett began, but Marcus cut him off. I forced nothing. You and Thomas planned my assassination. When he drank the poisoned wine by mistake, you let me carry the blame rather than face justice. You can't prove. I can. I stepped forward, holding Garrett's letters high, written in his own hand. Confession and conspiracy. 20 years of deception. The battlefield remained silent, both armies frozen in place. I failed this pack, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger, not through weakness, but through pride. I thought hiding my curse made me strong. I thought bearing this burden alone protected you. Instead, it fed the very lie that's now turned brother against brother. As he spoke, something extraordinary happened. The curse marks began to glow not with the sickly purple of before, but with silver light. I am Marcus Nightfall, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. I am cursed. I am scarred. I have made terrible mistakes. His voice rose. But I have also chosen peace over war, mercy over vengeance, and transparency over comfortable lies. If that makes me unfit to lead, then I'll step down willingly. But I will not let another wolf die for Garrett's deception. The silver light exploded outward, and I watched in awe as the curse marks began to transform, not disappearing but changing, becoming actual silver patterns on his skin, beautiful and permanent. The curse hadn't broken, it had evolved, transformed by truth into something else entirely. Truth. The sacrifice hadn't been love or death, it had been truth itself. The willing revelation of everything he'd hidden had transformed the curse from a weapon of destruction into marks of survival. Garrett stood frozen in the courtyard below, his army of rogues wavering. The truth had shattered their cause, exposed the lie they'd been fighting for. You think pretty words change anything? Garrett finally snarled. You're still weak, still the king who chose peace over power. Yes, Marcus said simply. I am. That single admission seemed to break something in Garrett. With a roar of rage, he grabbed a silver blade from a fallen soldier and charged toward the keep's entrance. "He's going for the throne room," someone shouted. Marcus moved to intercept, but I caught his arm. "No, this is exactly what he wants you. Alone, fighting the old way." I gestured to our assembled pack, to Garrett's rogues who were beginning to lower their weapons. "Show them the new way." Understanding flickered in his expression. Instead of pursuing Garrett alone, Marcus turned to address both armies. "Any wolf who lays down arms now will be granted amnesty. You were lied to, manipulated. That ends today." One by one, rogues began dropping weapons, then dozens. The tide was turning until a scream echoed from inside the castle. "Elara," I breathed, recognizing the voice. We rushed inside to find Garrett in the throne room, his blade pressed to Elara's throat. Blood already trickled from a shallow cut. "Stay back," he warned. 20 years I waited. 20 years I watched you rule what should have been ours." "It was never meant to be yours," Marcus said calmly, though I could smell his fury. "Thomas wouldn't have wanted this." "Don't you dare speak his name." Garrett's hand shook. "You took everything from me. You took it from yourself the moment you chose revenge over truth." I moved slowly along the wall, my blind eye showing me something others couldn't see. Threads of silver light still connecting Marcus to every wolf who'd heard his confession. The curse's transformation had created something new, a pack bond based on honesty rather than dominance. "Garrett," I called out, drawing his attention. "You loved Thomas." "Shut up!" "You loved him, and your love became poison, just like Morwenna's love for him became a curse." I stepped closer. "But love doesn't have to destroy. It can heal, if you let it." Pretty words from a one-eyed mistake. Maybe, but this one-eyed mistake can see what you can't. I touched my clouded eye. "Thomas is here, Garrett. His spirit has been tethered to you all these years, held by your guilt." It wasn't entirely true, but through my cursed sight, I could perceive something a shadow behind Garrett, a presence that felt like regret. Garrett's grip on Elara loosened slightly. "You're lying." "The night he died, his last word was your name, not in anger, in forgiveness." "How could you know that?" "Because the curse recorded everything, every moment, every buried truth." I moved closer still. "Marcus wasn't the only one cursed, Garrett. You've been carrying your own, the weight of a love that became betrayal." Garrett's blade dropped an inch. In that moment, Elara twisted free, and Marcus moved not to attack, but to simply stand between Garrett and any escape. "It's over," Marcus said quietly. "You can choose how it ends, with more blood or with truth." Garrett looked between us, his face crumbling. The silver blade fell from his hand, clattering on the stone floor. "I loved him," he whispered, collapsing to his knees. "I loved him, and I killed him, and I've been dying ever since." "Then stop dying," Marcus said, kneeling beside his former beta. "Start living with the truth." The shadow I'd seen behind Garrett shifted, lightened, and disappeared, a spirit finally released. As the curse's transformation settled into Marcus's skin, something unexpected happened to me. The clouded eye that had been dead for 3 years began to warm, then burn, then suddenly clear. I gasped as vision returned. Not just physical sight, but something deeper. I could see the bonds between souls, the threads connecting every heart in the castle, with both eyes now. "Your eye," Marcus breathed, noticing the change. I blinked, tears streaming down my face. "The curse is transformed, yours into beauty, and mine is healed. We're both free." 3 months later, I stood in the same throne room where Garrett had made his last stand, but everything had changed. Sunlight streamed through new windows, the dark stones had been cleaned to reveal their natural pearl sheen, and wolves from across the territories filled the space not in fear but in celebration. "Are you ready?" Elara asked, adjusting the silver crown on my head. "Not gold," we'd decided. Silver, like the marks that still decorated Marcus's skin, like the moon that guided our kind. "I was sold in a basement wearing rags," I said, looking at my reflection, both eyes now clear and bright. Now I'm about to become Queen of the Northern Territories. I'm not sure anyone's ever ready for that. You were ready the moment you stood on that auction block and refused to break. She squeezed my shoulders. You've always been a queen, Luna. Now everyone else gets to see it. The great doors opened, and I walked the same path I'd once been dragged as merchandise. But this time, wolves bowed as I passed, not from obligation, but from respect. At the end of the aisle stood Marcus, wearing silver and black, his transformed marks visible and proud above his collar. Pack of the Northern Territories, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner. 3 months ago, you witnessed the breaking of a curse through truth. Today, you witnessed something rarer, the choosing of a mate not for politics or power, but for love. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Love matches were practically unheard of among alpha royalty. Luna Whitemore was sold to me as property, Marcus continued, but she became my salvation. She saw through every lie, healed every wound, and showed me that strength isn't about being invulnerable, it's about being vulnerable with the right person. I climbed the steps to stand beside him, taking his offered hand. Luna, he said, loud enough for all to hear, but looking only at me. You were never property. You were never broken. You were a queen in waiting, and I was simply the fool lucky enough to recognize it. Careful, I said softly. Keep talking like that and people might think the feared Alpha King has gone soft. Let them. I've learned there are worse things than being thought weak. He pulled me closer. Like being so afraid of weakness that you never let yourself love. The ceremony itself was simple, an exchange of marks, silver paint on our wrists that would fade but whose promise wouldn't. When we kissed, the pack howled approval, and I felt it through the bonds. I could now see hundreds of hearts beating as one. The celebration feast was in full swing when an unexpected guest arrived. Garrett, thinner but clear-eyed, stood at the entrance with guards flanking him. I asked to come, he said to Marcus, to offer my blessing, if you'll have it. The room went silent. Marcus studied his former beta for a long moment. You tried to destroy everything 3 months ago. I did, and I've spent every day since facing what I became. Garrett straightened. After the battle, the council tried me formally. They were merciful official exile to the far territories instead of execution. I leave tonight, but I couldn't go without saying this. He turned to me. You were right. Love doesn't have to destroy. Thank you for showing me that before it was too late. Then, to Marcus, Thomas would have hated what I became. What we planned was wrong, driven by ambition disguised as love. You were always the better wolf. The better king. He knelt, baring his neck in submission. I wronged you beyond measure. I don't ask forgiveness, only that you remember, not all betrayals come from hatred. Sometimes they come from love so twisted it becomes poison. Marcus was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't respond. Then, go in peace, Garrett. Find whoever you're meant to be without the weight of old ghosts. Garrett rose, nodded once, and left. The celebration resumed, but quieter, more thoughtful. Later, as the feast wound down, I found myself on the same balcony where Marcus had revealed his curse to the world. He joined me, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Any regrets? He asked. About which part? Being sold, cursed, nearly killed, or made queen? Any of it. All of it. I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd bought my freedom and given me his heart. My father sold me for gold. The auction house sold me for profit. But in the end, no one could sell what was always free, my choice to love you. And do you choose to love me? Every day, with every scar, every truth, every moment, you choose to be real instead of perfect. His silver marks shimmered in the moonlight as he kissed me, and I thought about the girl who'd stood on that platform with wolfsbane in her pocket, ready to die rather than live as property. She never could have imagined this, not the crown or the castle, but the freedom that came from being truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. You know what the real irony is? I said against his lips. What? Your gold bought my body from that auction house. But my love, that freed us both. Because true freedom isn't about ownership, it's about choosing to belong to each other. As we stood there, the Alpha King and his once blind queen, both marked by curses that had become blessings, I understood the deepest truth. Sometimes, what looks like our greatest weakness becomes our greatest strength. Sometimes, the very thing meant to break us becomes what makes us whole. And sometimes, the price of freedom isn't what someone pays for you, it's what you're willing to pay to become yourself. The autumn moon rose full and bright over Shadowmere Castle, and somewhere in the distance, wolves howled not in mourning or war, but in celebration of redemption, love, and the kind of freedom that can't be bought or sold. It can only be chosen. And we chose each other, again and again, every day for the rest of our lives.